In studio with me now to discuss the property transfer duties that was announced in the budget speech just last week and how it will impact South Africans is Herschel Jawitz. He's from Jawitz Properties. Good to have you with us today. Thank you so much for coming through. Maybe if you can analyze for us the significance of the increase in transfer duties. Will it have a significant impact not only on your pocket but mine as well?
I think for everyone. So I think really what the minister has done is taken from Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. So what we got was an increase in the threshold below which transfer duty is not payable from 600,000 to 750,000, which is really just a catch-up of property prices over the last couple of years. And then we've added a few more layers in terms of into the middle market where there are some savings. So for example, up to 750,000, the saving is now 4,500 Rand on transfer duty versus what you would have paid prior to the 1st of March. Up to about 3 million, there are savings up to about 15,000 Rand for a excuse me, for a buyer, which is meaningful. That pays for your legal fees, it probably pays for your moving costs. But really where the real meat is at the upper end, and especially the luxury end of the market. So above 2.25 million, for every million Rand of purchase price, the maximum amount payable in terms of transfer duty has gone from 8% to 11%. So what that really means is for every million Rand of purchase price, the transfer duty payable has increased from 80,000 Rand per million Rand to 110,000 Rand. And that's really a sizable increase. And if you're purchasing homes at the luxury end of the market, it's a sizable amount of money.
My colleague Lindsay Williams also has a question for you.
I'm just reading you an article here, and you know, it confuses me somewhat. It was good and bad news for the property sector in the budget speech. Some real estate agents, of which you are one, say the budget presented was the best in many years for the property sector and will stimulate growth in the sector. Number one, do you agree with that? Number two, where does this leave us in line with our international peers in the so-called developed world?
Well, I think firstly, you know, there is a huge amount of demand at the first-time buyers and into the middle market. It really is, despite the economy, despite consumers being under pressure with disposable income, the real activity at the moment is in that lower to middle sector of the property market. So in terms of the transfer duty savings, I think it is going to provide further stimulus to the market, and I think that we are going to see more demand coming into the market. So I think it is good at that level at a cost to the upper and luxury end, as I mentioned previously. South African transfer duty is still very expensive relative to the developed world. So when you look at the transaction fees going in terms of transfer duty, your estate agents commissions, which are more or less okay relative to the international market, your transaction costs are in the region of 13 to 15% now at that end of the market. So when you think about property price growth at the moment, roughly 6 to 7% year on year, you're probably in a sort of a 2 to 4 year cycle before you recoup your transaction costs going in and out. And it is expensive relative to international markets.
Just on that, doesn't this make your job slightly more difficult when it comes to the high LSM group now? Or will the pricing get more competitive?
Well, I'm not specifically sure the pricing will get more competitive, but I think the buyers at that end of the market, so for example, on a 10 million Rand home, which is really at the luxury end of the market, the increase in transfer duties is probably in the region of about 250,000 Rand. And I think even though, you know, someone who can afford that level of house, it is going to give pause for thought. It may be about a deferred purchase. It may be about looking at an alteration to improve a property versus buying. And I think once again, you know, that's on top of increasing personal income tax at the highest marginal rate from 40 to 41%. So I think you may find at the luxury end of the market, you know, people are sitting back and saying, listen, we understand we need to make a contribution, but there seems to be a lot more coming from us than it does at the middle and lower ends of the market.
Herschel, Lindsay again, just looking at the bigger picture, I mean, transfer duties are one thing, and these are little juggling acts by our beleaguered Treasury because they need to get more money, and they also need to help stimulate the economy fiscally rather than monetarily. But let's go back to the monetary side of things. With PPI at 3.5% and CPI at 4.4%, it seems unlikely there's going to be an interest rate rise. Does that mean much to you at the... Well, could you, let's face it, you deal in the upper end of the market and people don't really care about interest rates, do they?
Well, I think, I mean, firstly, we probably operate across a broad spectrum of the market, but you're right, you know, at the upper end of the market, people are a little less concerned about interest rates versus at the lower and middle end of the market. But I think, relatively speaking, interest rates are still at historic lows, property prices are still offering fair value, and I think that we are seeing a shift in terms of spending away from, you know, your fast-moving consumer durable goods. You know, there's sort of the talk in that black diamond market, moving away from smart cars and fancy suits into more productive, asset-based, value-increasing assets like residential property. So, you know, at the bottom end, prices, interest rates have an impact on affordability. But I think just generally, you know, at the luxury end of the market, it's about consumer confidence, and you know, when the economy is not performing, low economic growth, the drivers are as much financial as they are consumer confidence. So I think it impacts on the market, just different sides of the same coin.
Herschel, thank you so much for your time today and your analysis of the increase in transfer duties. Thanks once more to Herschel Jawitz. He's from Jawitz Properties.